Hello all friends, this is Movie Man. Today I got my hands on the 1992 American sci-fi comedy with a black humor, Death Becomes Her. Have a seat. We're going to begin. Celine Char is a writer, her fiancé. Ernest Merville is a successful plastic surgeon. Helen's friend, Broadway actress Madeline Ashton, experiences the realization of losing her youth. And one day after a performance, taking advantage of Ernesto's genuine admiration and her charm, she steals him away from her friend. They soon get married. Kellen ends up in a mental hospital, gaining weight and talking only about Medlin for years. 7 years later, we see that Ernest is not happy in his marriage to Madeline. The man is very rich, but now does not do surgery, but the appearance of corpses being prepared for funerals. Once, at an event, he was asked what the secret was. He boldly replied that they use spray paint, i.e. paint in a can to stain a corpse. The relatives of the deceased are not too happy about it. All his wife ever does is spend money and go out with lovers, humiliate and manipulate her husband. He, on the other hand, is drinking like hell every night. Madeline is forever searching for the secret of youth, visiting beauticians, asking for more treatments than she should, and getting the maid to praise her perfect body. But nature is ruthless, and the woman understands this. One day they find out that Helen has recovered, has lost a lot of weight, and invites them to the launch of her new book. Madeleine doesn't take it seriously, but when she sees it with her own eyes, she is horrified. Helen looks posh for her age. Slim, beautiful, and trim. She talks to Madeline and says she never blamed her for ruining her relationship with Ernest. Of course she really didn't. The woman is still out for revenge and has invited the couple here to do just that. Helen tries to convince Ernesto that she doesn't blame him for what has happened after all. It is all Madeline's impudent fault. The man's eyes light up, and he recalls the time he and Helen were together, and he says that he is not happy at present and would like to put an end to it. Madeline observes the conversation from afar. In the evening, Madeline runs off to her lover's house, but he too does not want to receive her because he is on holiday with a young girlfriend. Ernest, meanwhile, is looking at photos of himself and Helen together. Madeline realizes that not even her lover needs her. Driving in the car in the rain, she remembers an important detail from the recent past. Earlier, she had been advised to turn to a certain girl, Lyle von Roman, who can tell her the secret of eternal youth. She looks for a business card in her bag and, without thinking, goes to the place where this woman lives, a real castle. At the entrance, she is met by a handsome young man and taken to the reception room of the local goddess. There we see a girl of what Madeline says is 28 to 38 years old, though in fact, she is 71. Lisley shows her a certain balm that grants her eternal youth. This is hard to believe at once, so they hold a trial session for Madeline. The sorceress pierces the visitor's hand and then drops the balm on it, and miraculously, the hand becomes as if it were a young girl's. Madeline compares her hands and immediately wants to get her hands on the remedy, but it's not that simple. Lisley warns that she can shine with it for about 10 years, and then she has to hide from prying eyes. Madeline has to write a check for a huge sum to save her body from aging. Finally, Lisley warns that she has to be careful at first and take care of her body because it will be changing. This is when Helen arrives at Ernesto's mansion. She is very happy that her ex-girlfriend is not at home. She looks great and therefore easily seduces Ernesto. Helen convinces the man that the root of his failings is Madeline, who must be got rid of at all costs. She has driven the man to alcoholism and a fall in his career. This blatant flattery pleased the man. He so wanted to be pitied, though not sincerely at all. Helen is literally itching for revenge. Under the guise of saving a poor man who is still sympathetic, she devises a plan to poison Madeline. The couple cannot simply divorce because, according to state law, in this case, the man would lose all his property. Helen proposes to invite the couple to dinner, to poison Madeline, and then to make it look like an accident. To make it look like the woman was drunk, drove, and flew off a cliff. When Madeline returns home, Helen quietly walks away. Madeline looks at herself in the mirror and can't believe her eyes. What she has wanted for so long is happening. Her youth returns. A man, encouraged by a conversation with his ex-fiancée, starts a scandal. He accuses his wife of adultery, wastefulness, and rude behavior. Eventually, he calls his wife a scumbag. She insults Ernesto in return, calling him decrepit and worthless. Suddenly, after a prolonged dialogue, the The man grabs Madeline by the neck and begins to strangle her. Soon he releases her, and the woman balances on only one step of the stairs. She rudely orders help to save herself, but the man gently pushes her down. She flies down the long stairs and literally curls up into a lump. Ernest rushes to call Helen. He claims that her plan is now useless because he has coped on his own. While Helen advises what to do with the corpse and how to tell the cops, Madeline rises to her feet, much to Ernesto's consternation. The woman is completely twisted, her face now on the backside. Ernest is in a panic and doesn't understand what is happening. A little worried for company, the woman straightens her neck back up. She now looks good again, but is very angry at her husband who wanted to kill her. Ernest decides to take his wife to the hospital, where Madeline is examined by a doctor who at first assures her that there is nothing wrong. But then he realizes that by all indications, the woman is already dead. But in fact, she is still alive. She feels no pain, her temperature is low, and she has no pulse. We, of course, understand that this is a side effect of the elixir of youth. Only no one around her knows about it. Madeline herself is rendered unconscious by such news. Ernest rushes out of the examination room to find another doctor. He soon returns and realizes that his wife has already been taken to the morgue. Unconscious, she could easily be mistaken for a corpse. The man takes his wife from the morgue and brings her home. He now realizes that he has to deal with the recovery on his own as well. Ernest uses his undertaker skills to restore her precious body. Helen is overseeing all this. She is certain the woman is dead, and Ernest is up to something and won't tell her about it. We watch as Ernie paints his wife's body to take on a healthier and more natural color, just like he does with the dead. When he comes out of Madeline's bedroom, he runs into Helen with a shovel and a body bag. Ernest tries to change her mind, saying that Madeline is fine, and she is resting on top. But Helen stubbornly stands her ground and asks, in that case, to have her friend come downstairs and kiss her, apparently in one place. But he was not to finish the conversation. She was just overhearing the conversation and came out to them. Helen's surprise was boundless. Ernest tries to escort Helen out of the house, but the conflict has already been unleashed. There is no stopping it. Madeline slowly walks off into another room, but immediately returns with a shotgun in her hands. She shoots Helen without an ounce of regret, the body flying off into the pond outside the house. Madeline is perfectly calm. She insists she has done the right thing and generally defended herself against the conspirators. Ernest, on the other hand, is panicking around the house and trying to do something about it. Madeline says they will bury her together and only together. If the man refuses, his wife will pretend to be dead, and then he will definitely be arrested for double murder. But the case never comes to fruition. As the corpse is about to be pulled out of the water, it begins to move and rise. Helen stands in the middle of the bloody pond with a huge hole in her stomach. It's immediately clear that no miracle rejuvenation and weight loss has happened to her, or rather, it has, but she's also been taking an elixir from Leslie. Madeline guesses everything. A fight breaks out between the girls, and only Ernest stands aside in bewilderment. Madeline has to fix her neck several times and put her head back in its original place. Ernest can't take this madness and rushes upstairs to collect his things. The girls figure things out further, but realize that a fight is not the answer. They can't kill each other anyway. They exchange accusations of past sins. Helen says that her friend has stolen all the boys away from her, and Madeline complains about the constant taunting, allegedly calling her too promiscuous. Nothing new, though. In the end, their shared grief unites the girlfriends again. They put on smiles and go up to Ernest's room, who has almost packed his suitcase. He is about to do what he should have done a long time ago, leave for good. The girls ask him to fix their appearance the way only he can. Ernest agrees, but only if he is free after the treatment. Of course, no one is going to let him go just like that. The girls, having got what they want, hit the man on the head and take him to Leslie. He wakes up in the castle we are already familiar with. On that day, there is a party of sorts for all the girls' clients. The owner of the mansion is just swimming in the pool and presents himself to Ernest without clothes. He is impressed by her beauty, and Leslie offers him to accept an incredible gift, the elixir of youth. The sorceress talks temptingly about it and its miraculous effects. Ernie almost touches the bottle with his lips, but abruptly stops and realizes that he does not want eternal life and eternal youth. For then he would see all his loved ones die and simply grow tired of living like that. He distracts Leslie and her maid and escapes from the premises. The girl is sure that he can't escape from here. At this time, an event has already begun on the first floor. An orchestra is playing, and everyone is waiting for the great sorceress to appear. Helen and Madeline notice Ernesto in the crowd. He is walking around trying to find a way out. They decide to rush after him. All the doors are already locked, but the man manages to summon a lift and make his way to the third floor. There he is attacked by the Dobermans of Lissley von Roman. Frightened, he miraculously escapes and finds himself on the veranda. The man sees an exit sign on one of the towers, but to reach it he has to climb over the roof. There is no other way, so he climbs onto the slippery tiles. Suddenly his girlfriends appear on the veranda. They shout at the man, which frightens him. His foot slips and Ernest slides down the roof. Incredibly, he clings to a part of the facade with his braces, which is also about to collapse. The girls try to reach him, but in vain. Sincerely, the young ladies, of course, don't want to save him, but they really want someone who will look after them forever. Madeline remembers that Ernie has put the elixir in his pocket and asks him to drink the remedy. Then he is guaranteed to survive. The man takes out the vial, looks at it, and throws it away. After that, Ernest falls off and flies into the abyss. But it's not all bad. His body breaks through the glass and he ends up in the pool, in the same room where he first woke up. The man is surprised by his incredible escape. He is slightly injured, but has to get out of the castle as quickly as possible. He wanders towards the cars and steals one of them. Lissley is angry and argues that the girls should find him for their own good after all. Helen and Madeline go to the doctor's mansion but don't find him there. Before they do, they look at each other and realize they are starting to crumble. Then an ingenious idea is born to groom one another, taking turns dying, tucking in different body parts, and keeping an eye on each other's looks. At the end, we see events 37 years later, the funeral of the deceased Ernesto. The minister of the church tells us about his life. It turns out that after his adventures, the man married again. Only for true love. He became a happy father and grandfather, an active member of society. In the back rows, we find Madeline and Helen laughing out loud, an event that suits them just fine. They sit with their faces completely covered. Helen realizes a part of her body has floated away and asks to get some acrylic paint from her bag, but no can. The women have to leave the ceremony. As the eternally young open their faces, we see how miserable they now look. Going down the steps, Helen steps on the very can of paint. She slips, grabs her friend, and together they go flying down. Their bodies fall apart completely. The torso is separate, the limbs are separate, so are the heads, and there's no one to help. This is when we realize that only Ernest has found eternal life here, having passed on this idea through science, charity, his children and grandchildren. And that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed this black comedy with a rather deep message. More to come. See you soon.